One thing that I will always say is this: in life, you cannot please everybody, and not everybody will like you for whom you are, for what you do, for your beliefs, your decisions, your motive, your fight, your struggle, and everything in between. Not everybody will love you. Not everybody will like you. Be it your family members, your friends, your relatives, your business associates, or what have you. Not everybody will love you. And that is one thing that has inspired today's episode of me coming here to introduce, to expose, and showcase the history of every Ghanaian and the motherland Ghana. How it all started, how it all began with your own predecessor, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. How it all started, how it went down, and how it is ongoing today. It's one episode that is very touching, that is very emotional and dear to my heart. In fact, by the time I was done with this episode, I felt so sober, I felt so emotional, and as well inspired. And that's why I said I cannot see this all by myself, because the world needs to really understand our roots as West Africans, and citizens of these different countries, right? And I'm sure that most of these videos are not making it to the limelight as much as it's supposed to be showcased, so that time to time we will refresh, rephrase, and strengthen our mind, our spirit, our soul, and our body with videos, with episodes like this here in Chivik Inspirations. And then guys, if you are just tuning in and hearing this voice for the first time, before we delve into the business of today, hi, I am Chivik Inspirations, and yes, here in Chivik Inspirations we say just the way it is, to inspire, captivate, motivate not just you, your spirit, your soul, and your body, and as well entertain and educate you in the process. So you see, you can get it as a dull moment right here in Chivik Inspirations. So without any rambling, without any further ado, let's take the history of the motherland Ghana and our own great fighter and warrior, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. Everything in details you need to know. And time to time I will interrupt this video by checking up on you all if you are still in the video, or if you're still following up, so that we will be getting along till we get to the end of this episode. So when you see me alter this video at some point, don't be discouraged. It's just for a second or a minute, and we'll come back again. So with that being said, let's delve into this video.
This video is about the story of an African leader who for every day of his life dedicated himself to serving his people and fighting for their best interests. For all the 15 years he held political power of some sort, this African leader never put himself or his family first, but rather always prioritized the well-being and happiness of his people. Even when he was forced into exile by shameless traitors, this African leader chose not to spend the time cooling off with his wife and children, but instead continued to dedicate himself fully to the task of liberating and unifying Africa. Despite having every opportunity to amass wealth and properties for himself and his family, this African leader never did so. And when he made a will for the few material possessions that he owned, he left nothing for his wife and children. Instead, he handed most of what he owned to the state. As you may have rightly guessed, the leader I am talking about is the first president of Ghana, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, a leader who fully embodied selflessness and service to his people. The current generation of Africans only know the reality of corrupt leaders who focus solely on enriching themselves and their families at the expense of their people. The highly inspiring examples of selfless leaders that Africa has also had is basically hidden, leaving Africans to falsely believe that every African leader must have been corrupt. Can you imagine an African leader who is in power for many years and after leaving power does not own a single house in his name? In the Africa of today, this is near impossible to even imagine, but that was exactly the case with President Nkrumah. From being elected as leader of government business in 1951 till February 1966 when he was deposed, President Nkrumah did not own a house in Ghana. Not even a single room anywhere in Ghana could be found in his name. This is in spite of the fact that he held political power for 15 consecutive years. This is the man who has been heavily demonized by his opponents and Western media as a despotic dictator. During his years in power, President Nkrumah constructed many housing projects all across Ghana to provide decent housing for his people. These housing projects include the township of Tema, the estates in Laboni, Kanda, Peduase, Subo, and many others. And yet, at no point did President Nkrumah decide to allocate one of the thousands of houses he built to himself. As a man with a wife and children, one could understand if he thought about them and built or allocated one house to them at least. But Osajifo never saw things this way. For him, the well-being of his people always took precedence over his personal interests and that of his family. Now, here's an interesting but hidden story that perfectly captures the selflessness of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. In Ghana, presidents have a place that serves as a retreat known as Peduase Lodge. It is located in a town called Ebiri. Here is the very interesting history of how Peduase Lodge came to be. The original building was built as a home for President Nkrumah by market women who loved him and wanted him to have a place to call his own. But to the shock of the market women, President Nkrumah later decided to turn over ownership of the house they built for him to the state of Ghana. Here is President Nkrumah's own daughter, Samia Yaba Nkrumah, telling the story of how her father gave the house he owned to Ghana.
So we heard a lot of these denigrating comments. He amassed wealth, he did this, and of course we knew very well, being his own family, that was far from the truth. Even the house, which the land was given to him, the house which he built with the help of strong women supporters, entrepreneurs at the time, which is today Peduase Lodge, where I was born, that could have been our house, but he gave it to the state. It's the property of the Republic of Ghana, receiving dignitaries just as he wanted it to be. So we, from personal experience, we knew that our father didn't amass wealth. Our father wasn't interested in those kind of things. In fact, he was a leader who exemplified courage, sense of purpose, vision, all the things we long for and we need to emulate in our lives. I mean, leaders across the board, all kinds of leaders.
Your father didn't have a house?
He did not. Strangely, incredibly, he did not.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a decision. Like everything he did, it was a political decision. Yes, I have a very interesting story about how those same women who helped him with the house, the construction of the house. Of course, it was much smaller, by the way. Over the years, it grew, so it wasn't so opulent, But yeah, they were very angry when he gave it back to the States because they wanted him to have a place to go at weekends and, with his family. And he explained to them. So everything he did was studied, was deliberate. He explained to them why he had to be above, superhuman almost, because, he had to ask he intended to ask some of his ministers, close associates, to resign because of malfeasance. And so he had a reason for everything he did. And the fact that he decided not to make money out of politics was a deliberate, studied political decision.
I am sure many watching this video may be hearing this for the very first time, but that was how truly selfless President Nkrumah was. In his determination to build a nation of upright citizens, President Nkrumah went over and beyond to set the best example possible for his people. He embodied the selflessness, modesty, integrity, and honesty that he always preached. Following the Western-backed coup to oust President Nkrumah, his wife Fatia and their children were forced into exile in Egypt, where they lived for years. Several decades later, when Kwame Nkrumah decided to return to Ghana for the first time, she faced a problem in finding accommodation because her father, who was the first Prime Minister and President of Ghana, did not own any house. This story was told by Major Retired Peduase Lodge, who was one of President Nkrumah's aides during his years in exile in Guinea.
When we came back for some time, I've been in touch with Samia. And I'm proud to say that I was one of the people who contributed into Samia's coming back to this country. It was in Italy. We were communicating. Eventually, when he was coming, who were the people who met Samia at the airport? The first time was Samia coming. Myself, one Senegalese, very close friend of, the father was a very close friend of Osajifo. He was with us. Then Mike Egan. We were the three people that met Samia. The first time I was sleeping her food, feet in the country. Then we thought of where Samia was going to be kept, because they were having no property, Nkrumah had no property. Fortunately, Dr. Indum offered one of his hotel's rooms.
And that's where she stayed.
That's where Samia stayed.
And in a book written by Professor Bafo Ajimanduya about the life and times of another Ghanaian leader, specifically General Champon, the story is told about how General Champon, who revered President Nkrumah, was determined to resettle and rehabilitate Nkrumah's family in Ghana. To achieve this, the general built a house for the wife and children of President Nkrumah in Accra. But there was to be a sad end to this heartwarming story, as in the early 1980s, the government of J.J. Rawlings confiscated the house that the general had built for the Nkrumah family. This forced Madam Fatia Nkrumah to take her children back to Egypt. Following the 1966 coup, the Ghanaian traitors, together with their Western masters, engaged in a vicious propaganda campaign to demonize President Nkrumah. They accused President Nkrumah of the worst possible crimes so as to justify their treasonous actions. Here is how President Nkrumah addressed the false claims of corruption against him in his own words. I am alleged to have stolen millions. In fact, I have no money outside Ghana, except for the sums which have been paid to me after the coup as royalties on my books, and which are now paid into the London branch of the National Commercial Bank of Scotland. I never handled any money personally for external or internal purposes, and this included my own salary. All drawing both on governmental and my personal accounts was countersigned by civil servants who were responsible to the Auditor General for all public expenditure, and who for my own purposes recorded my personal expenditure. Any one of these officials could have provided a full and valid statement of how every penny was dealt with by the President's office, and exactly how my salary was spent by me personally. If this had been done, it would have shown that I refused to accept as a political gesture any of the expense allowances allotted to the President by law. In the same way, if my will had been published in full, it would have shown that I left nothing even to my own family, but bequeathed everything I did possess to the party and the state. One can only wonder how a man with a family, more so an African leader, can consciously choose to never put them first, but rather always put his nation and people first. But that was how amazingly selfless President Nkrumah was. He believed that every African must submerge him or herself in service to the nation and mankind. President Nkrumah strongly disapproved of the African tradition that a man's first duty is to his family, as this leads to the nepotism and favoritism we see so much in Africa today. He believed very much in equality and justice, and that is why he worked hard to build a Ghana where every citizen, no matter who their parents were, had fair and equal opportunities. This is why in Osagyefos Ghana, there was free education at all levels and free healthcare for all Ghanaians. With the industrialization that Ghana was rapidly undergoing, there were abundant employment opportunities for all Ghanaians, and there were in fact more jobs going to be created, with there being plans to import labor into Ghana. In such a society, President Nkrumah did not have to amass riches for his children or give them an advantage, as they, like all Ghanaian children, had fair opportunities to work hard and become whatever they wanted to become. This was the meritocratic and equal society that President Nkrumah was working hard to build in Ghana. A society where who your parents are or where you are born plays no role in determining your chances in life. A society where the son of a farmer in the remotest village has the same or at least similar opportunities as the son of the president. This is very much unlike the present capitalist societies we live in, where the most important factor most of the time in determining who makes it in life and who does not is the family one is born into. No merit, no equality, and certainly no fairness. Even after he was forced into exile in 1966, President Nkrumah still continued to put the interests of Ghana and Africa above his own personal and family interests. Throughout his time in exile, he refused to allow his wife and children to even visit him in Guinea. Instead, he continued to dedicate himself fully to advancing the African Revolution by giving guidance to revolutionaries across Africa and by also writing books such as the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare. This decision by the Osagyefo resulted in his wife and children not seeing him until 1972, when they attended his funeral in Conakry, Guinea, following his death. Now, here's another story that highlights the incredible selflessness of President Nkrumah. In the early days of his exile in Guinea, he received many letters of solidarity from some African leaders and citizens. One of these letters was from Oscar Kambona, who was then the Tanzanian Minister for Regional Administration. In the letter, the minister first salutes Osagyefo for all he has done for Africa, and then offers his undying solidarity. The minister then informs Osagyefo of his decision to give up 1/3 of his salary to help Osagyefo pay for his expenses in Guinea. That part of the letter reads, I have decided to give up 1/3 of my salary to help to pay your expenses in Guinea. I am sending a few pounds with Ambassador Bureau and will keep on sending some more. If there's anything you would like me to do, please let me know. I am in the service of Africa. A truly selfless gesture from the Tanzanian minister, Oscar Kambona. After receiving the money, guess what President Nkrumah decided to do with it? One would have expected that for a man who had not stashed money anywhere and virtually had nothing to depend on in exile, he would use the money for his expenses. But no, this is what Osagyefo chose to do instead. I decided I would not make use of the money, but would keep it for my return to provide a scholarship for a Tanzanian student to study in one of the universities of Ghana. Another story that only further highlights the selfless commitment of the Osajifo to ensure the well-being and progress of all Africans is seen in another letter he received in exile. This time from the president and founder of the Somali Agriculturist Cooperative Movement, Ibrahim Farah. In the letter, the writer recounts the crucial assistance President Nkrumah provided to his agricultural organization when they were in great difficulty. This is in spite of the fact that Osajifo did not know them prior to their request for assistance. I hereby read that portion of the letter. Our agricultural cooperative was facing disaster at the time of the 1961 flood, but you saved us and made it possible for us to exist and face the future by granting us the vitally needed assistance, which was £3,000. From that day, the people of Somalia came to know you better, and also Ghana and Ghanaians. From that day, we understood that you were a genuine African leader because we arrived just from the blue. But when we told you about our difficulties, you never doubted us, and you helped us at a time when a person clearly distinguishes between friends and foes. And that is just one of many instances where President Nkrumah selflessly extended unconditional assistance to groups and organizations from all over Africa. Another act of President Nkrumah that highlights his selflessness was his relentless efforts to achieve a unification of Africa. There is no one who understood better how difficult the task to unite Africa was than President Nkrumah, but this did not deter him. He knew very well that his efforts to achieve African unity made him a target for the enemies of Africa, but this did not discourage him. President Nkrumah could have very well focused on his country Ghana and not have bothered about helping liberate other African countries. That surely would have earned him less enemies than he had and deprived his enemies of the propaganda that he was wasting Ghana's money assisting others. And after all, what was the personal benefit Osajifo was going to gain from fighting a near impossible battle to achieve African unity? The main beneficiaries, if Africa should unite, will be the millions of African people who will have the protection of a unified Africa and all the enormous advantages that it comes with. For Osajifo, his personal interest and safety did not matter. The best interest of Africans and Africa was what mattered to him the most. In Africa's history, there have been very few leaders who have advocated strongly for African unity, and all of these leaders have invariably been genuine and selfless leaders who worked for the best interest of their people. Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is without a doubt the best example.
At this point, I can see and say that it will be very difficult for West Africans to get a leader like Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. It will be very difficult, and if there are any chances, that chances will be slim, because the world today has gone beyond corruption. The world has gone beyond selfishness, greed, and hypocrisy. It has even deteriorated to what we call nepotism, hatred, bitterness, acrimony, ingratitude in all ramifications. In fact, as citizens of different countries with different faces and different minds, different hearts, so our character, our attitude are. And at this point, I will ask, who are you and what do you represent? Judging from the episode you're watching so far, while you're thinking and pondering on it as a food for thought, let's continue.
See, the politician today doesn't have any true agenda. And I'm telling you, I work with all of them. I work with Nkrumah when they go to. I work with Nkrumah in the Flagstaff House. I saw the man in action. He was selfless. He came to London in 1965, a year before he was overthrown. I was there doing some calls in Britain as a young officer. He stayed in one bedroom in Kwesi Ama's house, the Air Commissioner's house. I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. One bedroom, like a poor, ordinary person. He has an agenda to invest the money to make Africa as good as the white man's. Today, look at how you spend our money. What have you achieved since 1993? The coming into force of the fourth constitution. What have you achieved? I don't see anything. It is substantial you can point to. Before you point to the throne, you can point to huge projects.
Unlike other African leaders from the past who amassed great wealth by shamelessly and houselessly looting from their people, the example of the Osajifo shows that Africa is not doomed to always have selfish and corrupt leaders. There is the famous example of Thomas Sankara and also other African leaders like Ahmed Sekou Touré, Gamal Abdel Nasser, and Julius Nyerere. The Pan-Africanist revolutionary Stokely Carmichael, who later changed his name to Kwame Touré, in honor of Presidents Nkrumah and Sekou Touré, had this to say about the selfless leadership of the two men. My two fathers may be, along with the sainted Nyerere, the only African heads of states in contemporary times who went to their ancestors much as they came into the world. That is without leaving vast personal estates and Swiss bank accounts behind. At his death, Sekou Touré did not own even as much as a house in Conakry. That kind of personal integrity is almost unheard of in politicians anywhere, and especially much to our sorrow in modern Africa. Anyone who learns about the inspiring stories of selflessness of these African leaders is likely to applaud them. But ironically, the uprightness of President Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Sekou Touré and others rather made them endangered species, as they were subjected to relentless attacks to demonize and eliminate them. Had they sold out like Mobutu and many others, Thomas Sankara and Kwame Nkrumah most likely would have lived and ruled for many more years and enjoyed great wealth, even as their people suffered. That is the cruel and upside-down world we live in. Capitalism, they call it. A world where it is good to be bad and bad to be good. But a better world is certainly possible. And as Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said in the closing paragraph of his book, Dark Days in Ghana, if for a while the imperialists appear to be gaining ground, we must not be discouraged, for time is on our side. The permanency of the masses is the deciding factor, and no power on earth can prevent its ultimate decisive effect on the revolutionary struggle.
First President Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ibrahim Abubakar, looks at the state of the pencil factory he did establish in Kumasi.
Behind me is the pencil factory, one of the several factories established by Ghana's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The existence of this factory meant the country produces and uses locally made pencils without having to rely on imported ones. Thousands of jobs were also created. But the narrative has changed. The factory is now defunct, and we have to import pencils in the country.
Nkrumah made factories in Kumasi. He had a juice factory, he had a shoe factory, he had a pencil factory. Pencil factory is just around Ababu. The juice factory was at Insane, shoe factory was around Insane, and the tobacco factory was at Ejura. And these are factories that do what Ghanaians need. And this, apart from the fact that it's helping Ghanaians, it also creates jobs for us. And Nkrumah did all these things to ensure that it helps us grow our economy. Because if you have to import all these things, it means it's going to affect our economy. And look at all these things that I mentioned. Now they are all imported. Because if you have the pencil factory at that time, with all that structure it has, if it still exists up to date, one would have think that it would have enhanced, maybe had another branch somewhere which would engage more Ghanaians. We would have been fighting for jobs today. If all these factories, even Ashanti, are working, what Nkrumah intended to do with all these factories was to make sure Ghana be of its own, so that we can manage our economy the way we want it. I feel disappointed anytime I see any of the factories. And one will ask why. It is all because of the way Nkrumah was exited. After the overthrow, people intend to make Nkrumah look devil. So even the factories were not allowed to function, so that people will remember Nkrumah. Let's allow it to spoil, let's get it destroyed, so that people will forget about Nkrumah. Because the more you enter into all these factories, the more you remember Nkrumah. We thought we were doing Nkrumah, now we are doing ourselves. There's no way you can start with over 100 factories and end up, having 20. Today we are proud of one district, one factory, which is a PPP thing. Compare it to a total ownership of a company. Which one is an improvement? The one we own or the one we are sharing?
Thousands of youth would have been actively working if this defunct pencil factory and other ones are operational.
Let's go to the eastern region, where my colleague Adjoa Konedu Yadam was also at Kede to speak to the 73-year-old chief of Adankrono, Osaberi Masapon Nkrumah II, who for 10 years worked at the match factory set up by the late President Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
The chief of Adankrono in the Kwaibibre municipality, Osaberi Masapon Nkrumah, started his working life with the then vibrant Kade matches factory. He tells me the factory was his only hope and that of other young people in Kade and its neighboring communities.
It used to help us a lot, especially those of us who could not further our education. First, I was employed as a factory hand, who were those that worked directly on the matches.
He was there until the new owners decided to move the factory to Accra.
67. The FIFA Kotokanum 2 Kwame Nkrumah by years 67. And he taking over no factory Emma French for Abrofo.
After Kwame Nkrumah's overthrow, the factory was sold to some Frenchmen. That was the end of the factory.
And the Yaniba Hosono, almost say, near no.
For 10 years, the factory took care of him and his family until it collapsed. To him, moving the factory to Accra was the end of Kade. He calls on President Akufo-Addo to pay attention to the welfare of rural dwellers.
Mr. Akufo-Addo Assembly, Ghana Mine and I determination and San Jose, in Krasi for, in Krasi.
I am pleading with President Akufo-Addo to pay attention to the villages.
Now we can see that indeed, Sir Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, late, the first president of Ghana Republic, in fact, the fighter of freedom for most West African countries, particularly even my own country, Nigeria, has indeed done noble. He has indeed done exceeding great. In fact, I feel so bad and I feel so pained for his betrayal and everything that he and his own family has gone through or has been going through. In fact, I think he never deserved what he got, and he never deserved such an execution the way it actually happened to him. So in as much as we've gotten to this point, the big question mark is going to be, what are the blueprints we are going to leave behind? Just like our own beloved, the ground fighter of freedom for we West Africans, particularly Ghana, as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah has done. What is your own take? What is your own path? What are you doing in quest for life, in quest of leadership, in quest for money, in quest for the material things of life, for the things of life that are all vain? What are you doing? Are you leading and leaving a legacy that is going to live after you, just like we have seen for Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana? Are you, or are you just ranting, standing and fighting just for your own selfish interest? Whomever you are listening to this voice today, this is a question for everyone, and you in particular, to answer for yourself deep down in your heart, sincerely, genuinely. What are the blueprints? Because you know what, one day we all are definitely going to leave this world, and it is the legacy, the blueprints, the love, the support, the encouragement, the blueprints we live in the life of people, in the life of individuals, that will really matter. Not the houses, not the cars, not the material things of this world, because at that point, whether you own all these things, at the point of your exit out of this world, will not matter. What will matter is the life you have touched. What will matter is the life you have lived. What will matter is how much people can say that yes, indeed, you lived a good life. So think deep and think twice before you make any decision, before you take any actions. And to our leaders out there, just like we have all listened, we need to do better. As citizens, we need to wake up. This is a wake-up call. Whether as a citizen of Ghana, Nigeria, any citizen at all in West Africa, this is a wake-up call. We all need to wake up. We all need to pat ourselves at the back and say, yes, we have come a great deal so far from where our leaders have done their best and left us. Now we need to take the baton and continue from where they've stopped. Whether you are a leader in politics, you're a leader in your working environment, in any parastatal, you are a leader or a servant in any organization, in any facet of life, this is a wake-up call to you. As citizens of West Africa, as citizens of Ghana, as citizens of Nigeria, as citizens of Africa, or any citizen whatsoever in any part of the world, this is a wake-up call that every leader needs to go back to history, go down to the drawing board and know where we are getting it all wrong. And at the end of the day, take corrections, make corrections without sentiment, without bias, without hypocrisy, without any unlawful judgment, hatred, bitterness and acrimony, so that at the end of the day, we all will fight for one common goal, which is what? Peace and unity. Because united, like I will always say, we stand, and divided we will always fall. So what is the point if we begin to fight ourselves as citizens of West Africa? We see today in our world, Nigerians fighting Ghanaians, Ghanaians fighting Nigerians. Everybody do not want to have each other in one place, in one spot and in one mind. What is the goal? What is the aim? Shall we continue in this space? Shall we continue in this path? Is that what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and his predecessors and co-freedom fighters taught us? Is that what they taught all of us to be? Guys, I have said enough and we've heard enough at this point. A word is enough for the wise. Kindly leave your thoughts at this point. I know a lot is in your mind, in your mouth, in your heart. Kindly leave them all in the comment section. Yes, let's have this conversation continued from there. What are your thoughts, your opinion concerning the video you've just watched? Let's know in the comment section. And if you're just joining this space for the first time, hi, this is Chivik Inspirations. And here in Chivik Inspirations, we say just the way it is, not to spite, not to demean, not to demote, demarket any citizen of any country as West African, but to motivate, inspire, captivate, educate, entertain not just you, but your spirit, your soul, and your body, right? So if you are thinking twice of joining this family, think no further. Kindly hit on that subscribe button and please turn on the post notification bell next to it so that you will always be the first to get notified whenever new episodes, interesting, intriguing episodes like this pops in here on the space. You'll always be notified. And yes, if you're yet to like this video after coming this far, what are you waiting for? Hit on that like button. It helps by encouraging me to do better and do more, and also know that you enjoyed it at the end of the day. Hit on that like button, share this video so that more people will know and be aware of our roots as citizens of different countries, particularly the host of this episode, Ghana Republic, right? The motherland of Africa, the one who bets, the one who encourages, the one who supports every other country in West Africa and Africa to the world. We are so proud of our motherland, Ghana. And at this point, I want to appreciate and commend every effort of our own predecessor, our own freedom fighter, Sir Dr. Late Nkrumah of Ghana. Keep resting wherever you are. May your gentle soul and the souls of all the faithful departed continue to rest in peace. We are proud of you. Generations after generations will always be proud of you. The Ghanaians are proud of you. The true Ghanaians are proud of you. The true West Africans are proud of you. And the true Africans are proud of you. Keep resting until we meet at Jesus' feet someday, sometime. So at this point, guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your constant love and support. But remember one thing and one thing only, that you do owe yourself nothing but your peace of mind, your sanity, and your happiness. So fight for it at all costs, right? Do have a blessed, a happy, and a fulfilled day out there. Like, come up here on the space in my next episode. But for now, this is me, Chivik Inspirations, signing out. Bye, guys.